Of Tzadik Zayin and Beis, the last two lines. Talk to Gemara. Tana Rabbana, we learned in Abraisa, Zayrik, Mirishus Harabim, L'Rishus Harabim. You threw something from one Rishus Harabim to another Rishus Harabim, Rishus HaYachid Be'emtza. And there was a Rishus HaYachid interrupting between them. Daled Amis, if the item went for the length of 4 Amis in the Rishus Harabim, Chayiv, you'll be Chayiv. Pachas Ma'arba Amis, if it traveled less than 4 Amis in the Rishus Harabim, then Potter. Then you'll be Potter. Frek the Gemara, my kamashmalon. What's the chiddush? I mean, we know if something goes 4 Amis in the Rishus Harabim, you're Chayiv, and if it's less than 4 Amis, you're Potter. Answers the Gemara, ha kamashmalon. This is the chiddush over here. Rishuyos mitztarfos. That these two Rishuyos, the two Rishuyos of the Rishus Harabim, one is on one side of the Rishus HaYachid, one is on the other side of the Rishus HaYachid. So you would think that the Rishus HaYachid in between separates between them, and therefore you can't combine the two parts of the malacha. So meaning what happened over here was, it went 2 Amis in the Rishus Harabim in one Rishus Harabim, when you threw it, and then there was the break that it went through the Rishus HaYachid, and then it went another 2 Amis in the Rishus Harabim after the Rishus HaYachid. So the Rishus HaYachid in between should break up the malacha. So therefore, the chiddush over here is that it doesn't break up the malacha. The 2 Rishus Harabims that it traveled in combined together. And also, Udeloy Amrinon Kluta Kimishahuncha. The other chiddush over here is that you don't say Kluta Kimishahuncha. So as Rashi explains this, that if you're going to say Kluta Kimishahuncha, so then why if it traveled less than 4 Amas, should you be Potter? It's Kimishahuncha, it rested in the Rishus HaYachid, and then from there you might see it into the Rishus Harabim. So you should be Chayiv. Or as other Rishayim, the Rashba explains, if you're going to say Kluta Kimishahuncha, so that you can't combine the 2 Amas from before and the 2 Amas from after, because in between it Taka had a break. In between it was Huncha, it like landed in the Rishus HaYachid, so it should be a break. So that is the 2 Chidushim that this Braisa was saying when they get to this halacha. Okay, now the Gemara starts a new inyan, and it begins talking about the way things were in the Midbar, as we'll see over here. There's going to be a big arichas here in the Gemara, benegeh to how the Kroshim were carried on the wagons in the Midbar, and benegeh to the Yiriyas as well, how exactly they were positioned on the Mishkan. And as I mentioned before, for this Gemara, if you don't have the pictures, you're going to have a good imagination. Sagt the Gemara, Amar Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda, Amar Rav Abba, Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rav, Hamaver dal damas b'Rishus Harabim mekurem. A person that is maver, he carries 4 Amas in the Rishus Harabim, even if there's a roof above it. If there is a roof above it, that is Potter. He's going to be Potter. Lefi she'eina daima ledigle midbar, because you can't compare it to the way the midbar was when there was no roof above them. And as the Mefarshim explained, even though there was the Anani Yakoved is not considered to be a roof. So it's open, it's exposed, and that's what a Rishus Harabim is. Frekte Gemara, Eini is the so, but for Ha'agalois, the wagons that the Yidden used in the Midbar to carry the Kroshim on them, the Mekuras Havyan. And they were covered. They were covered with the Kroshim, right? They had the Kroshim on top of these wagons, so there's a roof. Agalois, so these Agalois, Tachteyen, below them, Beineyem, Vitzideyem, between the Agalois. So they had, when they traveled, as we mentioned yesterday or 2 days ago, when they traveled in the Midbar, so there were 4 Agalois that they used for the Kroshim. And they traveled side by side, and the formation was 2, and then behind them another 2, and the 4, that's how the 4 traveled. So between these Agalois, even though there was Kroshim that was sticking out, but still, even though there was Kroshim was sticking out between them, and Sideyen, the sides of the Agalois, as Rashi explains, this refers to the place where there's the wheels. By every wagon you have the wheels. So between the wheels, at the sides of the wagons, Rishus Harabim, they're considered to be a Rishus Harabim. So what do we see over here? That in the Midbar, the Beferish did have a Rishus Harabim Mekureh under the Agalis, or maybe even Beineyem, because the Kroshim were sticking out. The Kroshim were 10 Amas long and they were sticking out. So that was also maybe Tachteyen, or like Tachteyen, where it was below, under the Kroshim. And says the Gemara, Kika Omar Rav, when Rav said that under the Agalis it would be considered a Rishus Harabim, B'dira'asa, in the gap that there is between the Kroshim. So it's taka under, very good, okay. So Enochanami, there's the Kroshim on top of the Agalois, but in the gap that there is between the Kroshim, they're not under the Kroshim, over there is where it's a Rishus Harabim. But under the Kroshim, where it's taka Mekureh, it's not a Rishus Harabim. So tachtei means under the agolos, but in the place where there's a gap. It doesn't mamish literally mean under the kroshim. It means under the agolos, but in the place where there's the gap between the kroshim that were stacked on the agolos. So now the Gemara has to explain exactly the cheshbon. How is there a gap between the kroshim that are stacked on the agolos? Zok the Gemara say, Mechti, let's see. Orche de agola kama havoi. What was the length of these wagons? Chomesh amin. They were 5 amas long. So now pusya de keresh kama havoi. What was the width of every keresh? Amsa upalga. The width of every keresh was 1.5 amas. As the Gemara will explain over here. So we know that the height of all the kroshim, the length of all the kroshim was 10 amas. The width of all the kroshim was 1.5 amas. The thickness of all the kroshim was 1 amma. Okay? So now we're going to assume at this point, the Gemara is going to assume that the way they were stacked is on their width, not on their thickness. B'chlal, when you stack something, it's usually better to stack it on the side that's broader, on the width, and not on the narrower side. The stability will be better. So the kroshim were amsa palga, an amma and a half. Kama maisiv. So how many could he stack up in the length of the wagon, which is 5 amas? Tlasa. You can stack them near each other, 3 kroshim. So you're going to have 3 kroshim. So 3 times 1.5, you're going to have 4.5 amas filled. Okay? So then what happens? Pashalei palgad amsa. So what kind of gap do you have? The only gap you have is a half a amma. So every amma is 6 tfachim. So what's a half a amma? So you have just 3 tfachim of a gap. Kishadi leimar beini ubeini. So if you're going to take this gap and you're going to distribute the gap equally between the stacks of the kroshim, you're not going to make one gap of a half a amma, but you'll have a quarter of an amma of one gap and a quarter of an amma of another gap. Kalavadami, that's a gap that's way too small. That's a gap which is lavud. It's like it's closed. So how is it a Rishus Harabim? Why are we saying B'derasa, that there was a gap? No, so the Gemara says, no, they were stacked actually differently. Mi savris, do you think kroshim apusyayu have a manach lahu, that they stacked the kroshim on their width, which is an amma and a half? Achudan manach lahu, they were stacked on their thick side, on the narrower side. Okay, so the Gemara says that still doesn't answer it, because if you're going to stack it this way, you're not going to stack 3. There's no reason to just stack 3 of them. Now you're going to stack. You have enough space to stack 4 of them, huh? Yeah, well, 5 is going to be too much, as we'll see in a moment in the Gemara. The kroshim had tabois; they had rings on them, so you have to make space.
You couldn't actually put them together.
Couldn't actually put them together, especially if you're putting it on the thickness. If you're putting it on the thickness, so then the rings stick out. Right, so therefore, how are you going to put them all the way together? So what do you do? So you could only put 4. You could stack them now, a row of 4. So now what's going to be the cheshbon? Soif, in the end, it's going to still be the same. It's still going to have a problem. It's still going to be loved. Sumcha de keresh kama have. What's the thickness of each keresh? Amsa, 1 amma. Kama have a maisiv. So now how many did he stack them? Arba. He stacked them 4 near each other. So pashaluhu amsa. So the length of the wagon was 5 amas. So if you stack 4 kroshim, each one an amma, so you're left with 1 amma. Kishadi lamar beini ubeini. So now if you distribute this extra space of a gap and you distribute them between you have now 3 places to distribute them, you're going to have, what's 1 amma? 1 amma is 6 tvachim. So you distribute this gap in the 3 different openings. So you have 2 tvachim of a gap, 2 tvachim of a gap, and another 2 tvachim of a gap. So it's still going to be lavud. So kilavadami, it's still going to be lavud. So you still don't have a gap to give your answer that it was between. Now, so the Gemara says, wait a minute, but there's another thing over here. As the Gemara is going to bring on Amud Beis, there's a machlokes about the kroshim. We could explain this according to the Mandama, which is Rabbi Yehuda, that says kroshim mulmaton uvion amma. At the bottom they were taka thick an amma, but mulmailon, as it went up, kolin v'hoilchen ad ke'etzba, it became narrower and it became as thin as a finger.
Where does Rabbi Yehuda get that from?
Not sure.
Because it says in the pasuk clearly.
Actually, I am sure. The Gemara is going to bring the Mekayris and Amud Beis. We'll see in the Gemara and Amud Beis. So the Gemara Shapir. So then we can understand. So though over here there was a gap in the kroshim when you get to the top. Right? So at the bottom they were thick, taka, and you have the cheshbon that it's lavud when you stack them up 4 near each other, but at the top they were narrower, and there was much more of a gap. But according to the opinion of Nechemia, that says, at the bottom the kroshim were thick anama. At the top they were also thick anama. What are we going to say? There was not a gap that was less than 3 tvachim. That's at least 3 tvachim. And so therefore it's lavud. So Taisus over here says an interesting thing. L'chayda, when you're stacking these kroshim, wouldn't it be logical to say that they didn't stack the kroshim all with the thick part on one side and the narrow part on the other side? You stack them. I don't know how you call it in English, but you turn it around. One staggered is maybe the word. One thick and one thin. One thick, one thin. So that you'll have more space to fit on the agala. So Taisus says that for a few reasons. Taisus says no, they don't do that because Mailam b'kodesh vein meriden, which is an interesting application of that klal. When you have one keresh which has the maila, the top part of the keresh, and you don't want right near it the lower part of the keresh. The top part of the keresh is the higher darga is a mailam b'kodesh in the lower part of the keresh. Very interesting thing. From here, by the way, is the makir b'negei to tzitzis, that when you wear tzitzis, you should always have the same side. You shouldn't have the one that's on the bottom, on the top, or the top and the bottom, the front and the back, I mean. And the same thing with a talis. When you wear a talis, you should always wear the top part on the top and the bottom on the bottom. That's why we have a lining of the silk on the top. Yeah, this is the makir. You have the silk on the top.
So you should being the front to the back?
Yes, that it should always be the same.
How do you make sure?
You make sure. You make a simon for yourself or something. Yeah, they make the size. You have something there. Al-Kupanim, that's one answer Taisus says. Another answer Taisus says is, when they were told the command to travel, so they wanted to do it as quickly as possible. Let's get going. The Eibusha says, Vayisov, we got to go. So if you're going to have to turn it around, you have to position it. So they brought it out from the Mishkan as is and loaded it up that way, not one you have to turn all the way around.
Isn't the makor at the bottom, if the bottom of the carriage is...
Oh, exactly. Huh?
The bottom of the carriage is one amma. They're all next to each other.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's makor on there. I understand what makes a difference if the top goes like this.
Because in that chelik is more space. You look at the picture, you'll see. Okay, let's continue the Gemara inside. Rav Kahana, so Rav Kahana answers, Ba'at bi'i. What we're talking about over here is Ba'at bi'i. At bi'i means the rings. The rings, l'chayra, that's the pshat over here. I mean, there's a few pshatim in Rashi, but ba'atbi means the rings, and what this means is, as I mentioned before, the kroshim had rings. You cannot line up the kroshim mamish flush one with another because the rings don't allow for that. So therefore, this is how they line them up. Let's start from the sides of the wagons. By the sides of the wagon, the two outer kroshim at the sides, they line them up with the rings facing outward. And then right near it, you could line up another keresh, flush right to it, and then you face the rings of that keresh inward. So the two kroshim on one side are flush with each other, and the two kroshim on the other side are flush with each other, and you have the rings that are sticking out on the outside, and the other ring of the other keresh sticking in on the inside. And the one extra amma that was the gap was in the middle. In the middle of the keresh, there was a full amma gap. So over there, that's not lavod, that's 6 tvachim, that's a full amma that was a gap in the middle.
Why did they stick in another keresh?
There wouldn't be space because that middle keresh also has rings, also has its own rings.
That only works according to the Mandama that they're fully thick all the way up an amma, but according to the Mandama, if you switch them around, there'll be a gap like this.
Okay, Anachanami. The whole answer here is according to the Rab Nechemia that says they were thick from the top and the bottom.
Okay, these kroshim are in the agalas, or
on top of the agalas.
On top of the agalas.
Mm-hmm.
So talking about the agala itself, or under the agala?
Under the agala.
The agala is made up of the kroshim?
We'll see. 1 second. We're not done yet. Now we're talking about what the space the kroshim fill up. Let me just mention there's a famous sikha from the Rebbe on this Inyan, Benegei to why did it have to be so exact. The Rebbe asks a famous question that when the Nesiim brought the agalas, so they brought 6 agalas. Why didn't they bring more agalas to make it easier? But Poyel, how do they have to stack this up? There were 48 kroshim, and they used, it's Parshas Nasai, Chelik of Ches, Parshas Nasai. So they had 48 kroshim, and they had to stack up on each wagon 12 kroshim. So we're talking over here about whether they stacked them 3 in 3 rows, or they stacked it in 4 rows. So if it was 3 rows, they had 4 krushim piled up, stacked. Or if it was in 4 rows, so then they've piled it up 3. Why didn't they have more agalas and be breit? So the Rebbe says, Mikan Raya, the Rebbe says a few answers to this question, but one of the answers the Rebbe gives is that the Torah wants to teach you that you have to use out every single iota of space to the fullest. That if the agalas, this is what they could handle, you have to use it to the fullest, not to use one agala in a convenient way and another agala a convenient way, and you use it only partially.
That's why there's a half a minute to stagger them according to.
Okay, yeah. So that to use as much as possible. Yeah, frag the Gemara, but we're not yet done. At pi heichi manachlo. Even if it's done in this way, like we just explained, that you have a gap in the middle because the rings of the outer ones are facing outward and the rings of the inner ones are facing inward. But heichi manachlo. Where did he place these krashim? Agaba the agala, on top of the agala. Agala gufa mekuravai. Wasn't the agala itself? Didn't it have a floor? So the floor of the agala itself should be the makura, is a roof that below it is already a makura. Yeah. So what's this answer that there was a gap? The agala itself has a roof. Okay. And for the Gemara, Amar Shmuel b'Yiseidai. So Shmuel says, no, that's not the way the agala was built. It did not have a roof. It was the wheels were connected with. It had no floor. The wheels were connected with nails to panels on the side. And the top was an open agala, and that's how they placed the krashim on them. So therefore, that's not a question. Now, this is only Rashi's pshat in the Gemara. If you have the time later, you can learn Taisus' pshat. The Goinim's pshat. There's another few pshatim how to learn this Gemara. This is Rashi's pshat in the Gemara.
But we're not going to go
How
that
were
far.
the agalas were only for krashim?
Yeah, actually 4 of them were for the krashim,
Krashim,
and 2 were for the yiriyas. The Gemara does not talk about the cheshbon of how they positioned the yiriyas on those agalas, but 2 were for yiriyas.
You don't need a floor then. If it was for the kalim, I understand why you need
Right.
a floor.
The yiriyas, like the krashim, were very big, and you could lean them on the panels on the side. Tana Rabbanon. So now the Gemara actually brings this machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Nechemia. Tana Rabbanon krashim ol matan oivyan ama. At below, at the bottom of them, they were thick and amma. But at the top, kolin v'holchen at ke'etzpa. They become narrower to the point like a finger. Shenemar, and he learns this from this that it says yiu tamim al roshei, that it should be tamim al roshei. What's the meaning of the word tamim? Or lahalonu aimer. There's another pasuk where it says tamu v'nichrisu. It ends and gets cut off. So you see that the lashon of tamu means when something ends and it gets cut off, it gets narrower. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Just like below they were thickanama, kachmol mailan oivinama, above as well, they were also thickanama. Shenema yachdov. The pasuk says yachdov, and the meaning of yachdov means that it's uniform. It's the same, the top and the bottom.
Why can't yachdov mean this way?
No, there is, you're right, the simple pshat of yachdov, as the Gemara will soon say according to Rabbi Yehuda, the simple pshat of yachdov is the fact that there was smooth, flush, all the krashim were in a straight line. But he's darshaning that yachtav also means that each keresh itself, each keresh was yachtav, was uniform top and bottom. Dr. Gemara, v'aksiv tamim. According to Rab Nechemia, doesn't it say tamim? How does he teach this word tamim if he doesn't compare it to the lashon of tamu v'nichrisu? And so the Gemara, hahu, that means something else. The leisu shleimen, the wood that's brought for these krashim should be brought full. The timber was one long 10-foot piece of keresh. Not that you take different fragments of pieces, as the Gemara here says, and v'loi, the leisu shleimen v'loi leisu denisra. Not that they bring fragments and attach them together. That's the taich of tamim. Now, according to Rav Nechemia, haksiv yachtov. How does he teach the meaning of the word yachtov? When you line up the krashim, you shouldn't line them up one in, one out, but they should be flush, all one straight line. That's what it means yachtov, but not regarding each individual keresh that it's uniform top and bottom. So the Gemara. So now we're going to come to the corners of the Mishkan. How is this going to work with the corners? Here also you have to use a little bit your imagination. Now this is well understood according to Rab Nechemye. Kishem Shamul Matan Oivyanama. At the bottom the Kroshim were thickaname. Kach Mol Mailan Oivyaname. At the top they were thickaname. Hainu Dechsiv. This is the pshat on the pasuk that it says Uliyarkesya Mishkan Yama. At the west side, at the Maidav side of the Mishkan, Tasa Shisha Kroshim. So you have 6 Kroshim that are facing the inside of the Mishkan. Ushnei Kroshim, then additional 2 Kroshim, Tase Lemikzois, you make for the corners of the Maidav. So in total you have 8 Kroshim for the Maidav of the Mishkan. Now what happens over here? The Osi Pusya Dahani, Memalile Lesumcha Dahani. The width of the Kroshim on Maidav are filled in and are flushed together with the thickness of the Kroshim that are on Safin and Darim. Simple, that's how it works when you put Maidav and Safin together. So you have the width flushed to the thickness of Safin. So that it's perfect, it fits perfectly. But But according to Rabbi Yehuda, that says that below the Kroshim were thick and amma, but milmailon kolim v'hoilchin at ke'etzba, but above the Kroshim narrowed and went inwards. It narrowed inward. That's how they cut it. When you cut something and you want to get it narrower, you can do it in a few different ways. You can sort of cut it from the inside and it gets narrower towards the outside, or you can cut it from the outside, getting narrower going in. What they did is they cut it narrower towards going in. So it went up and it got narrower at the top, so then you have a problem. High aisle, the high nafik. At the corner it wasn't flush. The ones from Tzafin went in, and then the one from Maidav stuck out, because the one from Maidav had the full width of an am and a half, and it went all the way out, and the ones from Tzafin and Darim went in. So it wasn't flush. Sagt the Gemara, and for the Gemara, no. Then shafi luhu kiturin. The way these kroshim, the kroshim at the corner, the way it sloped like a mountain that's cut not only from one side but from the side as well. So that little bit that would be sticking out from the maidav, they cut that off. They sloped it that it should be a corner piece, that it should be shaped together, flush, and that piece shouldn't stick out. Kiturin, like a mountain narrows to the top on all sides, not just on one side. So over here they had to slope it, they had to narrow it out, not only on one side but on another side as well, in order that it should be flush with the other side at the corner. Okay, I hope it's clear enough. The Gemara mentions another detail benegeh to the kroshim. There was the briach, there was the pole, or there's another word for it in English. There was the no, there's a pole sort of that was inside.
That went down the middle, right?
Yeah. Inside the kroshim. Tane, we learned in Abraise, benes haya oimed. This was a nes, how it was inside, because this was one pole that went through all of the kroshim on all 3 sides, and it bent. And when they had to take it out, they were able to take it out. And when they put it in, it went straight through menakotza lakotza, from one end to the other end. So this was a nes. Now the Gemara goes to the Yiriyos, and the Gemara is going to explain the relevance of the machlokes of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Nechemye regarding the position of the Yiriyos on the Mishkan. And there are 2 layers of Yiriyos in the Mishkan. So we start with the bottom layer. There's Mishkan Tase Esa Yiriyos. So the first layer, it says that there were 10 panels of these Yiriyos. And as we'll see in a moment, what was the width of each one of these panels? 4 amas. So if you have 10, you have 40 amas. And then Oirech HaYiriyah, the length of each one of these panels, HaYiriyah Ha'achas Shmeina Ve'esrim Ba'ama, was 28 amas. Okay, so the Yiriyos is basically 40 amas by 28 amas. So now how did they throw these Yiriyos over the Mishkan? Shadi or Chayu Lepusya the Mishkan. The length of the Yiriyos, 28 amas, was positioned on the width of the Mishkan. Kamahavya Esrin Vitamni. So how long were these Yiriyos? 28 amas. Dal Eser, you could take out 10 Le'igra for the roof of the Mishkan. Right? The roof of the Mishkan was, the width of the Mishkan was 10 amas. Right? As we just said before, you had 8 kroshim at the at Ma'ariv of the Mishkan. So if you have 6 kroshim, which each one is a amma and a half, that's 9 amas, and then you have a half amma from one keresh and a half a amma from another keresh at the corners. So that's a total of 10 amas.
According to Rabbi Yehuda, it doesn't work.
According to everybody, because the machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Nechemia is going to get to the thickness, not going to get to the width. When you get to the width, there's no machlekes.
Well, Keturah is going to change both.
I don't think so. I won't. Okay. If you think the cheshbon, it's not. I don't think so. Kolpanim, the point is that the inside of the Mishkan is 10 amas. Okay. So when you're placing the yiriyos over the Mishkan, you can take off. So let's take off 10 for that. Pashalu tes lahai gisa and v'tes lahai gisa. So you still have 18 amas left of the length of the yiriyos. So you need 9 for one side that it hangs over, and 9 for the other side. So now here's going to be the difference between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Nechemia. Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that you don't have to take off an amma for the thickness of the kroshim on the top because it became very narrow all the way to the top. So migli amma da'adonim. The kroshim, so again, the yiriyos came down on each side 9 amas. So it didn't come down all the way to the floor. The kroshim were 10 amas tall. The bottom amma was where the Adonim were. So that one amma of the Adonim were exposed. But according to Rav Nechemia, that says that the kroshim even at the top were an amma thick, so you need an additional amma for each side for the thickness of the kroshim. So migli amma the kroshim, besides the amma of the Adonim which was exposed, you have an amma of the kroshim that was also exposed. Because it only hung over on each side 8 ammas, not 9 ammas. That's regarding the length of the yiriyos. Shadi pusyayu. Now you take the width of the yiriyos. Well, if you combine the width of the yiriyos of all 10 panels, it's actually longer. It's 40 amas. So you take the width of the yiriyos and shadi pusyayu lorcha the mishkan, and you're going to put it over the length of the mishkan. Kama avya. How long was the mishkan? Arbon, 40 amas. Dal tlosin liigra. So you can take off 30 amas for the inside length of the Mishkan, which is 30 amas. So now, Pashaluhu Yud, you have another 10 amas left for the length of the yiriyos, for the extra panels that are hanging over. So Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that says that you don't have to deduct anything for the thickness of the kroshim because it wasn't thick, it was narrow at the top. Machase amad adonim. So you have another 10 amas, so it hung down all the way to the bottom. Even the bottom amma of the adonim was also covered. But according to Rab Nechemia, you only have 9 to hang down. Migle amad adonim. So the only 9 hung down, so the amma of the adonim was exposed at the ma'ariv of the Mishkan.
So obviously the flat side wasn't neat inside the Mishkan. The flat side wasn't neat inside the Mishkan.
Yeah, okay, if I understand correctly what you're saying. I'm not 100% sure if I can understand.
You explained before that they stepped it out.
Okay. Now, we go to the top layer of the yiriyos. Vasisa says, the Gemara is going to go through the same cheshbon again, but it's a different size. Vasisa yiriyos izim la'oil v'gaimer. Now, the top layer is made of goat's hair, and over there, oirech ha'yiriyah ha'achas shloishim ba'ama. So first of all, the Gemara doesn't bring the whole pasuk there, but over there it had 11 panels. So they were the same wide. Each one was 4 amas wide, but there were 11 panels. So you have 44 amas. That's on that side. And in the length, it was also 2 amas longer. The length was 30 amas. So now again, they did the same thing. Shadi or chayu lepusya de mishkan. You put the length of the yiriyos over the width of the mishkan. Kama havia, how long are the yiriyos tlosim? These yiriyos are 30 amas long. Dal esel igre. Deduct 10 for the roof of the mishkan. Pashulu eselai gisa ve eselai gisa. So you still have another 10 amas of the 30 for one side and 10 amas for the other side. Le Rabbi Yehuda that says that you do not have to deduct an additional 2 amas for the thickness of the kroshim. So you have the full 10 amas that can hang on each side. Mechasya amad adonim. So it's going to hang down all the way to the floor on both sides, and it's going to cover even the amma of the adonim. Rab Nechemia, but Rab Nechemia that holds that you have to deduct another 2 amas for the thickness of the kroshim. Megalya amma the adonim. The amma of the bottom amma of the adonim will still be exposed on both sides because it hangs over only 9 amas. Tanya Nami Hachi, we learned similar to this in a Braise. The pasuk says that there's an amma on this side of the top yudiyos, and an amma on this side on the top yudiyos, ba'oidev, that's extra, lachasais amma shel adonim. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says the extra amma actually covers the adonim. Like we just explained, according to Rabbi Yehuda, it goes down to the floor. Rabbi Nechemia that says that you need an extra 2 ammas on the top for the thickness of the kroshim, lachasais amma shel kroshim. That extra amma covered the kroshim, but it did not cover the adonim. There was only 9 to hang over on each side. Okay, this is b'negeya to the length of the yudiyos. Now the Gemara continues b'negeya to the width of the yudiyos, which is 44 amos long. Shadi pusyayu lo'orchei de mishkan. Then they spread the width of the yudiyos to the length of the mishkan. Kama havya mem v'arba. It's for the width of the yudiyos is 44. Dal tlasin le'igra. So deduct 30 for the length of the mishkan. Pashulu arbasari. So you still have 14. You still have 14 ames of the width of the yudiyos. Dal tarti lekafla. You have to take off 2 for kafla, which means that it was folded over in the front of the Mishkan. There were 2 ames that it folded over, that it hung over in the front of the Mishkan. The chsiva kafalta sayiriya hashishis el mul penei ha'oil. That extra panel of the yiriyah, the 6th one, so half of it, which is 2 ames, hung over in the front. Amul panea oil. Okay, so that's 2 for there. So pashalu tarti, sorry. But we still have 12 ames of the width of the yiriyahs. So what happened? 12 ames of those yiriyahs hung down in the back. So now according to Rabbi Yehuda, that says that you do not have to deduct an additional amma for the thickness of the keresh on the top. Hainu d'chsiv, this is the meaning of what the pasuk says. Chatzi hayiriyah ha'oidefes tisrach. A half of one panel is oidefes, is extra that's hanging on the floor. Meaning there were 2 ames even longer than the Mishkan. It hung on the floor because the height of the Mishkan is 10 ames, so it hung down 12 ames, so 2 ames it was dragging on the floor. But according to Rab Nechemia, that says that you have to deduct 1 ameh for the thickness of the keresh, so there's only 1 ameh that it's going to be extra hanging on the floor. My tisrach, why does it say that 2 ames, a half a yiriyah, which is 2 ames, was dragging on the floor? That says the Gemara, Tisrach mei chavrei seha. Tisrach does not mean that it was actually 2 ames that were dragging on the floor. Tisrach means that it was hanging extra more than 2 ames more than the level of the yiriyas that was below it. It was 2 ames longer than the yiriyah below it, but not that it was actually hanging on the floor 2 ames.
It was an ames for the Adana.
Exactly. Tana de Rabbi Shmuel. So Rabbi Shmuel said, Lama Mishkan Daime. To what is the Mishkan compared? Leisha shemalechas b'shuk, to a woman that's walking in the marketplace. V'shipulel mahalchan achareo, and she's wearing a garment and she has like a train of her clothing that's following behind her. And over here as well, the Mishkan had the train of the yiriyahs that were following, that were dragging on the floor behind it. And in other places, I think it also says, also b'negei to the front, that it was covered in the front, also like a woman that walks in the street that covers herself.